I have to talk to you about Hacking Team. It's a really, I
Yeah,
know it's a tough one, and you've taken a lot of, I think, well-deserved criticism for this one. This is a very hard one where I can't rationalize any of the decisions and mistakes, but it's good to get it out in the open. Let's talk about what happened here. Obviously, you wanted to buy some software and ended up purchasing Neutrino, which was obviously linked to the Hacking Team. Do you want to talk about what happened there, like as candidly as you can?
yeah, sure. So I think that's definitely an area where we made a mistake. So, like I talked about earlier, we wanted to build out some of our blockchain analytics
Mm-hmm.
capability in house. And whenever you're doing that, you can kind of make a decision about, do we want to build something ourselves? Do we want to try to buy something as a start to the team, or invest in something, maybe as a third option. So in this case, we have a team that does corporate development, M&A. They looked at the landscape, and we did identify a couple potential targets for acquisition. Where we went on and did some diligence on the team, but most of our diligence was around the technology itself and the team that we would get, like the engineers and things like that. What we failed to do was the diligence that was kind of more around our values and our culture and that kind of thing. And so when we did make the acquisition, we started to see a lot of noise online about people saying, "Hey, do you know who you just acquired?" And that's where I started to look into it along with the team, and we realized, okay, we might have hired some black hats here or people who at least are gray and don't have. There was some, they probably drew the line where we would not have drawn the line about the kind of people they were working with. And so at that point, we kind of had to go make a tough decision and go talk with these people and say, you know, how much of this is true, like what actually happened. There was a lot of pressure, I remember at that time, where people were saying, like, you need to fire them, you need to fire them, you need to fire them. And look, I was like out of town. I needed to come back and fly back. I was like, I'm not going to fire these people without like talking to them first and actually understanding what really happened, because I don't want to. I think it's just kind of an unethical thing to, like, because someone's angry on Twitter, you go and fire them without even
Mm.
like talking to them. So we did go do some diligence. We talked to them and we said, all right, like this part, we probably, it's our mistake. We should have told you this before we acquired you, and we tried to create a win-win just exit agreement with them that was like, took our responsibility for it. You can't work at Coinbase, but we do need to kind of pivot this team, and so we then had a tough job of sort of rebuilding that team with new people and getting it to a place where we had the technology working as described. So I think the main thing we learned from that is there's additional diligence steps we've got to do in M&A. And like a lot of things, like a lot of M&A deals, things are moving quick,
Uh-huh.
because like there's a competitive process. You've got to like go check the everything as close as you can, but then you got to make a decision. And so we moved too quick on that one.
How involved is someone like yourself in the due diligence process? Is it just an external job and someone gives you a report? Are you yourself responsible for doing part of the due diligence?
So at that size of company, I think we were probably doing I don't know. We'd probably done like 5 or 6 kind of M&A deals that year.
Wow.
At that size, I had not met with them prior to us signing the agreement, not personally at least. It wasn't until we realized there was a problem afterwards that I got involved. So we do a number of acqui-hires every year, and for every one that we do, we probably look at 10 deals. So there's a whole team that just does nothing but that, and I typically don't meet with those teams before they come on board.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because this was the one that, like, I mean, there's a few things that make it really difficult to defend Coinbase at times, and I think you see it in one way and people see it in another way. You're on the inside and people are on the outside. But this one is really tough to rationalize. I'm just going to quote Reporters Without Borders for the first time compiled a list of 5 corporate enemies of the internet, 5 private sector companies that it regards as digital mercenaries because they sell products that are used by authoritarian governments to commit violations of human rights and freedom of information. And almost certainly, Hacking Team, some of their work led to journalists being arrested and deaths of people. Now, you're not responsible for that. I'm not holding you responsible for that in any way at all. This is those people. But the important question to ask is that this information wasn't hard to find. It was a bit of Google work. And I guess the question that I would put to you, and many would say, is that if your due diligence fails on this, you know, how are people meant to trust you with the privacy related to their purchase of Bitcoin? And I know that's a tough question, but I think it's one that needs asking.
Yeah. It is a tough question. I'm not sure I have a great answer. Like, this is an instance where we messed up. That we should have done more diligence. Since that's happened, we've revamped our diligence process to include these kind of like reputational checks in the process. Um, yeah, there's really no excuse I can give you. So all I can tell you is that we make mistakes as well, and a lot of building a company is like trying to learn from the mistakes and just get better over time.
Okay, I mean that's fair. I mean, you can't do much more than apologize. But I'm glad you answered it. But I do have just another question relating to it. So you talked about spinning the team out, and I don't know if you can or if it's been publicly revealed, who has been spun out and who's been left in. But I think people would want to know, like specifically, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so this was a tough decision, right? Because I understand why people would want to know, and there's also an issue of just like, honestly, it's like privacy and respect for these individual people, right? Like,
Okay.
there's all kinds of situations that happen at a company where somebody may exit, and I think it's just nobody wants to work at a company where you throw people under the bus when they leave. So what I can tell you is that we met with everybody on the team and we said, okay, who was there like a real question mark about, given this past the examples that you just mentioned, and really all of the key people where there was some kind of question mark or reputational or values issue were exited from the company. There was a handful of engineers that were lower level folks that we felt like they were not like the decision makers. They weren't as culpable. And frankly, we needed their help to transition some of the technology to actually be able to use it. And so I feel good about like the way we kind of cleanly exited that and did it with respect for those people because it was our mistake. You know, I, they were people who said, "Hey, I thought we were getting acquired and we were joining this company," and the minute later they're getting fired. Like that's a really bad experience for them too. So all around, we just messed up and we tried to do the best we could for everybody involved.
Great, and I respect the fact that you can't talk about who was and who is still on the team, and I'd rather use this then as an opportunity to say I would list 4 people if any of those were still on the team. I think, and people knew about it, I think that would be a mistake. And you don't have to answer this, but I would just say if Giancarlo Russo, Alberto Orneghi, Marco Valeri, or Lucas Guerra were still on the team. So I was going to ask if they are, as you can't answer it because it becomes like a game of Sudoku, right? So I've just kind of put it out there that I think if any of those 4 were still in any way on the team, I would go and reconsider that and reflect on it. They might all be gone, which is great. But no, I appreciate you answering this. And I will say to everyone, listen to this. One of my things I said to the start with is that I don't want there to be any questions that I can't ask, and you've agreed to do that, so I appreciate that.